Have you ever wondered what medieval people really believed about dragons? Not the Hollywood version with CGI fire-breathing and epic battle scenes, but the genuine medieval understanding of these legendary creatures. Welcome to the ultimate guide on dragon taming, Medieval Edition, where we'll explore the fascinating intersection of historical belief, practical advice, and some absolutely wild misconceptions that would make Hiccup from How to Train Your Dragon look like a complete amateur. Picture this. You're a medieval peasant in 1347. And everyone in your village is convinced that dragons are absolutely real. Not mythical, not legendary, but as real as the pigs in your neighbor's pen. The difference is, while you know exactly how to handle a pig, nobody's quite figured out the dragon situation yet. But don't worry, because medieval people had some truly creative ideas about dragon management that range from surprisingly practical to absolutely bonkers. Let's start with the most important question. Why did medieval people believe dragons existed in the first place? The answer is actually pretty logical when you consider their perspective. These folks regularly discovered massive fossilized bones that they couldn't identify. Without modern paleontology, stumbling across a T-Rex skull or mammoth femur would absolutely convince you that enormous, terrifying creatures once roamed the earth. Add in some creative storytelling, mixed with religious symbolism, and boom, you've got yourself a dragon problem. But here's where it gets interesting. Medieval dragon belief wasn't just random superstition. It was a carefully constructed system with rules, categories, and even practical applications. Medieval scholars divided dragons into specific types, each requiring different approaches. You had your classic fire-breathing variety, which were considered the most dangerous. Then there were ice dragons, supposedly dwelling in the frozen northern regions. Water dragons controlled rivers and lakes, while earth dragons lived in caves and controlled precious metals and gems. The categorization system was surprisingly sophisticated. Church authorities actually developed detailed taxonomies of dragon species, treating them like a medieval field guide to dangerous wildlife. They documented supposed behavioral patterns, habitat preferences, and most importantly for our purposes, theoretical taming methods. This wasn't just folklore, but what they considered serious academic research into managing supernatural threats. So how exactly did medieval experts propose taming these magnificent beasts? The methods they developed reveal so much about medieval thinking, combining religious faith, practical animal husbandry, and some truly bizarre pseudoscience. The first and most crucial step was establishing your credentials as a dragon tamer. According to medieval wisdom, dragons could only be approached by individuals of exceptional moral purity. This meant extensive fasting, prayer, and confession before any dragon encounter. The preparation process was incredibly elaborate. Prospective dragon tamers needed to purify themselves for at least 40 days, mirroring Christ's time in the wilderness. During this period, they consumed only bread and water while engaging in constant prayer and meditation. The theory was that dragons, being supernatural creatures, could sense spiritual impurity from enormous distances. Approach a dragon while harboring sinful thoughts, and you'd become a very crispy medieval barbecue. But spiritual preparation was just the beginning. Medieval dragon taming manuals, and yes, these actually existed, recommended specific equipment and supplies. You needed a consecrated silver chain, blessed by no fewer than 7 different priests. Regular iron chains wouldn't work because dragons were considered partially divine beings, requiring holy metals for containment. The chain had to be exactly 49 links long, representing 7 times 7, a number of spiritual perfection. Your dragon taming kit also required holy water, not just any holy water, but water blessed specifically for dragon encounters. Regular holy water was apparently insufficient for dragon-related activities. You needed the premium ecclesiastical blessing package, which cost significantly more and required special paperwork from church authorities. Medieval bureaucracy extended even to mythical creature management. The approach strategy recommended by medieval experts sounds like something from a fantasy novel, but they took it completely seriously. Dragons were believed to be incredibly intelligent, possibly more intelligent than humans, so direct confrontation was considered foolish. Instead, the recommended approach involved negotiation and mutual respect. Medieval dragon tamers were essentially supernatural diplomats. The first contact protocol required approaching the dragon's lair during dawn hours, when the creature would be most receptive to peaceful interaction. You announced yourself formally, stating your name, your village of origin, and your peaceful intentions. Dragons supposedly appreciated proper etiquette and would respond more favorably to polite visitors. Medieval people believed that rudeness toward dragons was not just dangerous, but actually morally wrong. Once you established communication, the negotiation phase began. Medieval dragon taming theory suggested offering valuable gifts as signs of respect and friendship. Gold was obvious, but dragons supposedly preferred items with sentimental or religious significance. A family heirloom or religious relic would be more impressive than raw wealth. The theory was that dragons, being ancient and wise, valued emotional connections over material possessions. But here's where medieval dragon taming gets really interesting. The proposed training methods borrowed heavily from actual animal husbandry practices. Medieval people understood how to train horses, dogs, and hawks, so they applied similar principles to dragons. The key was establishing yourself as the alpha through demonstrations of authority, not aggression. You needed to prove your worthiness as a leader through intelligence and spiritual strength. The training process supposedly began with simple commands and gradually progressed to complex behaviors. Medieval dragon tamers used food rewards, just like training any other animal. The difference was that dragon treats were considerably more exotic. Instead of regular meat, dragons reportedly preferred offerings that had been blessed by priests or prepared according to specific ritual requirements. Medieval dragon cuisine was apparently quite sophisticated. Feeding schedules were considered crucial for maintaining dragon cooperation. These creatures were believed to have very specific dietary needs that changed according to lunar cycles and seasonal variations. During full moons, dragons required larger portions but would be more cooperative. During new moons, they ate less but became more temperamental. Medieval dragon care was basically like managing a very large, very dangerous cat with supernatural powers. The housing requirements for tamed dragons present some fascinating insights into medieval engineering imagination. Dragons needed lairs that provided adequate security, while allowing for their enormous size and supernatural abilities. Medieval architects actually designed theoretical dragon stables, complete with flame-resistant materials and proper ventilation systems. These blueprints reveal sophisticated understanding of airflow management and fire safety, centuries before modern building codes. Climate control was considered essential because different dragon species had specific temperature requirements. Fire dragons needed consistently warm environments, while ice dragons required cooling systems. Medieval people proposed using underground chambers, natural caves, or specially constructed buildings with adjustable heating and cooling mechanisms. The engineering challenges of dragon housing pushed medieval innovation in surprising directions. But perhaps the most important aspect of medieval dragon taming was establishing clear boundaries and expectations. Dragons were considered intelligent enough to understand complex agreements, so successful tamers negotiated detailed contracts outlining mutual responsibilities. The human would provide food, shelter, and protection from dragon hunters, while the dragon would offer transportation, protection, and assistance with various tasks. These dragon contracts were supposedly enforceable through spiritual means. Breaking an agreement with a dragon would result in divine punishment, while dragons who violated their commitments would face supernatural consequences. Medieval people believed that God himself oversaw dragon-human partnerships, ensuring that both parties honored their agreements. It was like having the ultimate mediator for supernatural disputes. The practical applications of tamed dragons in medieval society were surprisingly diverse. Transportation was obvious, but medieval people envisioned dragons serving as aerial scouts, weather predictors, and even agricultural assistants. Dragons could supposedly identify the best locations for planting crops, predict rainfall patterns, and protect livestock from other predators. They were like supernatural farming consultants with wings. Military applications were considered but generally discouraged by church authorities. Using dragons for warfare was deemed too dangerous and potentially immoral. The church worried that dragon-assisted armies would become too powerful, disrupting the divine order of society. Plus, battle-trained dragons might develop aggressive habits that would make them difficult to control during peacetime. Medieval military strategists had to consider the long-term psychological effects of combat on their supernatural allies. The economic implications of dragon taming were enormous. A successfully tamed dragon could transform a peasant family's fortune overnight. Dragons were believed to have innate knowledge of mineral deposits and hidden treasures. They could locate gold mines, identify valuable gems, and even predict market fluctuations through their supernatural wisdom. Medieval people viewed dragons as living, breathing, investment advisors with excellent track records. But dragon ownership also came with significant legal responsibilities. Medieval law codes actually included regulations for dragon-related damages and disputes. If your dragon accidentally destroyed someone's property, you were financially liable for repairs. Dragon tamers needed insurance policies, medieval stuff, usually involving agreements with local lords or church authorities who would cover damages in exchange for services. The social status of dragon tamers was complex and contradictory. On one hand, they were respected for their spiritual purity and exceptional abilities. Successfully taming a dragon proved that God had blessed you with special grace. On the other hand, association with supernatural creatures made some people nervous. Dragon tamers walked a fine line between being celebrated heroes and being viewed with suspicious fear. Marriage prospects for dragon tamers were particularly complicated. Having a dragon companion made you incredibly attractive to some potential partners while terrifying others. Medieval dating advice actually addressed this issue, recommending that dragon tamers be upfront about their supernatural relationships to avoid awkward misunderstandings later. Nothing ruins a medieval courtship quite like forgetting to mention your fire-breathing roommate. The daily routine of maintaining a dragon partnership required careful scheduling and planning. Dragons supposedly needed regular exercise, mental stimulation, and social interaction. Medieval dragon care guides recommended establishing consistent feeding times, providing adequate entertainment, and ensuring proper grooming. Dragons were believed to be extremely vain about their appearance, requiring regular scale polishing and wing maintenance. Communication with dragons involved developing a specialized vocabulary and understanding dragon psychology. Medieval people believed dragons communicated through combinations of sounds, gestures, and telepathic connections. Learning dragon language was considered as difficult as mastering Latin, requiring years of study and practice. Medieval dragon tamers were essentially supernatural linguists. The healthcare requirements for dragons presented unique challenges for medieval medicine. Dragons could supposedly live for thousands of years, but they were vulnerable to specific ailments and injuries. Medieval veterinarians developed theoretical treatments for dragon diseases, combining herbal remedies with religious rituals. Dragon medicine was like regular veterinary care, but with significantly more prayer and considerably higher stakes. Retirement planning for dragon tamers was a serious consideration. Because dragons outlived their human partners by centuries, medieval people worried about what happened to tame dragons after their tamers died. The recommended solution was establishing dragon inheritance systems, where trained dragons would be passed down through families or transferred to other qualified tamers. Medieval estate planning included supernatural creature management. The most fascinating aspect of medieval dragon taming was how seriously people took these theoretical guidelines. Medieval scholars wrote detailed treatises on dragon behavior. Church authorities developed official positions on dragon ethics, and legal systems created frameworks for dragon-related disputes. This wasn't just fantasy entertainment, but what they considered practical preparation for potential supernatural encounters. The training methods reflected medieval understanding of animal psychology and learning theory. Dragons were believed to respond to positive reinforcement, consistent routines, and clear communication. Medieval people understood that fear-based training would create unpredictable and dangerous dragons, so they emphasized building trust and mutual respect. Their theoretical approach to dragon taming was actually quite progressive by animal training standards. Regional variations in dragon taming practices reveal how local cultures adapted general principles to their specific environments and beliefs. Northern European dragon tamers emphasized cold weather survival skills and ice dragon management. Mediterranean regions focused on fire dragon control and desert navigation. Each area developed specialized techniques based on their local dragon populations and environmental conditions. The equipment maintenance requirements for dragon taming were extensive and expensive. Silver chains needed regular consecration, holy water required frequent replacement, and protective amulets lost their effectiveness over time. Medieval dragon tamers needed ongoing relationships with church authorities to maintain their supernatural equipment. It was like having a very specialized and very expensive hobby. Safety protocols for dragon taming were surprisingly comprehensive, covering everything from fire prevention to emergency evacuation procedures. Medieval people understood that working with supernatural creatures involved significant risks, so they developed detailed safety guidelines. Dragon tamers needed escape plans, first aid knowledge, and backup support systems. Medieval workplace safety extended to mythical creature management. The most important lesson from medieval dragon taming is how people approached the unknown with systematic thinking and practical planning. Even when dealing with purely theoretical situations, medieval people applied logical problem-solving methods and drew from their existing knowledge base. They treated dragon taming as a serious discipline requiring study, preparation, and ongoing skill development. Medieval dragon taming reveals the fascinating intersection of faith, folklore, and practical thinking that characterized medieval intellectual life. These people weren't simply superstitious or gullible. They were trying to understand their world using the best information available to them, and they approached even supernatural challenges with systematic methodology and careful consideration of practical implications. The legacy of medieval dragon taming extends far beyond historical curiosity. These theoretical frameworks influenced later fantasy literature, contributed to the development of animal training methods, and demonstrated how human imagination can create comprehensive systems for managing the impossible. Medieval people proved that, with enough creativity and determination, humans can develop plans for absolutely anything, even taming dragons. So the next time you watch How to Train Your Dragon or read fantasy novels about dragon riders, remember that you're seeing echoes of genuine medieval thinking. Those elaborate training sequences and detailed dragon care routines aren't just modern imagination, but updated versions of systems that medieval people actually developed for managing their theoretical dragon encounters. Medieval dragon tamers may never have met real dragons, but they certainly knew how they would handle the situation if they did. Medieval dragon taming represents the ultimate example of human optimism and preparedness. These people looked at the most terrifying supernatural threat they could imagine and decided that with enough faith, knowledge, and proper planning, even dragons could become partners, rather than enemies. That's the kind of positive thinking that could probably solve most modern problems, supernatural or otherwise. The medieval approach to dragon taming teaches us that the line between myth and reality isn't always as clear as we might think. Medieval people lived in a world where the supernatural felt very real and immediate, so they developed practical responses to fantastic challenges. Their dragon taming methods may seem absurd to modern audiences, but they represent serious attempts to solve complex problems using available knowledge and resources. And that's the real magic of medieval dragon taming. Not that dragons existed, but that people believed they could be understood, approached, and ultimately befriended through patience, respect, and proper preparation. Medieval dragon tamers may never have tamed actual dragons, but they certainly tamed their fear of the unknown through knowledge, planning, and an unshakable belief that even the most impossible challenges could be overcome with the right approach and sufficient determination.